All right, so take a little bit of the afternoon to talk about the marketplace, understanding that this might be the first time some of you have been introduced to the marketplace. So I'll talk a little bit about concepts, what's offered, and then talk about how we're trying to utilize next generation technologies within our apps in hopes of helping customers explore the possibilities of Flow a bit more. So we'll talk some about the current state, future state, and then I'll try to wrap up. So what is the marketplace? Well, the marketplace is what we believe to be a location to gather up apps and app packages that utilize next generation technologies. But we understand that some of our customers, actually most of our customers, also use us for specific functionality of IFS. So what we've packaged up here are a few different products. One is the Novacura standard applications. So we've built a list of apps that are the most used apps across our customer base, and we've tried to standardize those. The benefits of standardization are that we have the ability to lift those over versions of IFS. But we also understand that most of our customers use us for a very specific reason. They come to us because they're not after just the standard application, but they're after the ability to modify that to meet their business needs. I think that's arguably one of the biggest powers of Novacura Flow. So for that use case, we actually don't lock these apps down. We give you the ability to download them and then deploy them on your Novacura Flow instance and make any changes that you wish, or sure, use our services to make those changes. Maybe part of the AMS group to make those adjustments as well. But for those who have the development capacity in-house, there is the capability of making the adjustments yourself. But again, these are maintained version over version of ERP. So if you're on apps 9, or let's say 10 today, and you're going to cloud in a year, then ultimately these apps will be packaged for 10, and you'll see a new version of them for cloud using the new OData connector. We also have the ability for anyone to package applications and put them on the marketplace. These are typically driven by partners, but the concept here is maybe you have a fantastic solution you want to share with the world and you're impressed by what's been done, or possibly even packaged in a standard way to be able to deliver it to multiple customers. This is the place to locate those applications. There's an example up on the marketplace today for field service management, as well as some of the Infor M3 apps that we have up there. And we also want it to include free components. These might be concepts on how to use features. So today we talked a little bit about the Bluetooth low energy connection. It's a new feature in Flow. Sometimes those new features are a little bit complex to configure for your first time, and reading through the help might not help you actually get it off the ground. So what we've done is we've packaged up solutions, small little solutions that we consider components that would help you better understand and utilize that feature. The hope here long term is that anyone and everyone could upload to the marketplace. They could be community driven components, and those components can get rated over time, where 5-star rated components might show up, and then we start to embed those in the studio long term. Today they are just on the marketplace for download, but we hope that over time customers such as yourselves and even partners will begin to put their own components up here for use. And these get sold under the free model. The idea is, so partners are paid per app. Novacura is under a subscription, as they are maintained version over version, and then the community components typically get distributed free of charge. So on the marketplace today, we already have a good bit of these. I think if you look at components, there's over 70 something components comprised of 20 plus apps. Those range anywhere from mobile work order attached to IFS apps 10 to travel and expense, which we'll talk a little bit about today, which uses AI components to read receipts. We have over 50 plus warehouse transactions on the marketplace. that are connected to apps 10. We have a shop floor reporting application that's in Portal 2 and uses workflows as well as mobile applications to be able to execute shop floor or shop orders. And I think from this morning's topic, someone was asking how to get Outlook attachments or maybe read emails. So we have components up on the marketplace today which do just that. Using our connector, REST connector, be able to read Outlook attachments. It's things that are possible today that maybe take it's more advanced configuration within the system. Today we'll do a little bit of a deep dive on this one called custom form recognizer. So for those who are still using paper-based processes and haven't digitized those, we're going to talk a little bit about a component we have on the marketplace to train AI to read those documents. And again, as discussed in this morning, we also have the BLE component as well as the OPC UA component. So those teach customers how to use our new event step within the studio, how to configure and how to deploy it. And for those who are less familiar with BLE, we also have some quick start documentation, trying to teach people a little bit about Bluetooth Low Energy and its use cases. So if it's your first time to the marketplace, you can go to marketplace.novacura.com and you can peruse the library of apps on the marketplace. Those typically have bits of information such as a description, a video where you can watch the application in use, and some screen captures. Not only do we have the information here, we talk in a bit of details. We show people which versions of Flow to use, the version of the application, which connectors might be needed, and some publishing information. So here you can deep dive into if you're on a late enough version to be able to use the capabilities that we have within those applications. We also support version history here and reviews. So what's important to note is all this is available to anyone as an internet user. You don't need to be logged in. You can peruse the library today at your leisure. But not only do we have postings of the marketplace, we also publish on docs.novacura.com our changelog, installation guides, and operation manuals. So every single app comes along with a step-by-step tutorial on how to install. They might have third-party components, REST connectors that need to be configured. All of this is gone through in our documentation. I strongly suggest going here and taking a look at some of this documents, even if you don't plan to use the marketplace or subscribe to it. It's a good place to get information on how to configure the REST connector, or maybe use it against Outlook and the ways that you can use OAuth 2 protocols to limit which inboxes you might need to see. So the documents here range from marketplace to extensibility and integration. Again, suggest just reading over these. And we also try to put in an operations manual so that user documentation, what's expected at an individual step for our standard apps, can be read through in detail. So the apps that we talk about when we say warehouse management, work orders, I think of those as these low-hanging fruit applications. They're the ones that most our customers use us for. Where we try to take the marketplace apps, though, is to utilize these next generation technologies. There's a lot of buzzwords out there: IoT, AI, edge devices. You can keep going, blockchain. And what we're trying to do is see where those technologies have made their way to be streamlined enough to be put into an application. And AI is a good example of that. So we find apps on our marketplace where we can infuse those type of technologies. An example is actually within our travel and expense app. So within our travel and expense app, we use an AI service to be able to take a picture of a receipt and parse the information on that receipt. So here we just send this off to an AI service, this picture, and it automatically tries to parse out the information here, such as total, the merchant name, currency. And we allow users to review and make edits to that before submitting. It's just one example of an AI service that we can use within an application that streamline workflows for our users. And look, when you talk about these services, sometimes they're complex to put into a flow. But what we believe happens with the marketplace is that we've packaged it, taught the users how to use it, and documented it. So ultimately, we make it quite a bit easier for you to consume even just this small piece of the travel and expense. And maybe you're not going to use it in a travel and expense. Maybe you want to do receipt analysis within your work order execution and still do T&E type elements on a work order. It's possible. You could take this component and move it because we give you the flow. Not only that, we've added in our travel and expense the ability to automate a scheduled job to read an inbox. So within our new version of travel and expense, we can automatically read an inbox element and make it show up in an inbox card inside of Flow. So if I send an email to receipts.novacura or at novacura.com, within a specific amount of time as I schedule my job, it will read that inbox, know that I sent it as paul.phillips at novacura.com, and it'll send it into my inbox for review. And from here, I can automatically read. Again, it tries to parse out through AI what those fields are. And if it gets it wrong, then I'm able to edit it before submitting it. You know, I think of this as a good use case. And yes, it's used in travel and expense, but this is applicable in a lot of other use cases. Maybe you want to be able to read an inbox for invoices and automatically parse those invoices and send them off to IFS. It's all possible. And you could use the component that exists here and see how we make this an action within Flow that you can then utilize within your own applications. It doesn't need to be just in the travel and expense app. So in the travel and expense app, we use AI, which is pre-made for us in essence. It's a service that we can call that responds back with information. In this next one, Form Recognizer, it's a really good way to use what they call OCR, which is optical character recognition, to extract key information from forms. So it's a better use case where maybe they don't have a pre-canned model that you can use within the AI experience to train a model to respond back with what you want. It looks a little something like this. You have a tool, and in that tool, you can start to train an AI model to read information. That information could be something like the customer name. Maybe it could be invoice comments, possibly an invoice number, or an invoice date. And what you do is you tell the system a few times over 5 documents what each value is. And you can keep uploading forms and training the model over and over again over different iterations. But if you think of an invoice concept, not only do you usually have what we would consider in IFS the header information, you also have lines, details, and those might be in a grid format. So you can train that AI to look at, let's say, deduction lines or invoice lines and parse the information and send it back as a response to. Again, relatively simple to train these models nowadays. And the benefit is that once you've trained it, it becomes a service for you to utilize in Flow. So now you could send something like a PDF up with these custom trained models, and it will do its best to read the information off of that PDF and auto parse it for you. And now it's sort of managed by exception, right? Instead of you having to type in all of this information manually, you can now do it by exception with some confidence levels. And these are just 2 ways that we try to encompass these technologies into our applications on the marketplace, helping customers get more out of Novacura Flow. So for the marketplace, the roadmap is an update this year. We have a long list of apps that are already available on Apps 10. As we begin to move into the cloud and more customers adopt, there's a bigger need to update those applications. So you'll see here warehouse management via the OData connector. Same goes for work order and travel and expense. So we're working on getting these into the OData connector, which has just been released in 6.14. And when we do, you'll start to see posts on the marketplace for these to utilize that connector and see how it works. So on top of developing these apps, we're often looking for proof of concepts to include in these next gen technologies in hopes that we can combine our knowledge and put something on the marketplace. One area that we're doing this right now is what they call computer vision. And I'd like to say that there will be a computer vision in manufacturing forum that comes out in the next coming weeks. If you want to hear more about how you can use this type of technology on the shop floor, please attend that meeting. It's going to be interesting, I think, for most people. But I'll talk high level about how this works. So in computer vision, there's the ability to do video analysis, which is sort of just taking frames of a video and checking for certain items. So much like we can train AI to look at forms, we're also figuring out ways to train computers to look for specific items. An example, Tesco and Giant Eagle use this type of video analysis to ensure their shelves are fully stocked. So what you see in front of you here to the left is a grocery store. And in that grocery store, there's red markings wrapped around where low stock will be. They know what items or elements sit in that stock, and they can flag someone to come and restock the shelf based on those items. It's a good use case for video analysis. Not too dissimilar, FlightWare uses this type of AI technology with drones, where they have the ability to fly a drone through a warehouse and check inventory levels of consignment stock. They can use the drone to capture what's sitting on the shelf. They know what the shelf item is through a QR code and can dictate how much stock is on a shelf, if there is low stock or high stock, to do inventory counts. So we're running a proof of concept today in hopes of putting something similar on the marketplace, where we review Best Buy codes on the food and beverage items that you might buy in store. So if you look at anything you purchase in a store, there's always a date on it. Your milk goes bad in 2 weeks. Your snacks go bad in 2 months. So we want to review those to make sure they're on the production line. And although I can't really show that exact use case to you today due to some customer restrictions, the concepts that I want to show you here still exist. So the video that you're about to see is really this concept embedded in Beltline. And what's going to happen is, as snacks roll over the conveyor, it's going to automate the calculation and cost. So it's going to determine what the snack is. Maybe it's a Pepsi and that's $1, or maybe it's a Twix and that's $2. And as the video keeps rolling, it automatically determines based on a trained model what the snack is, and then totals the price for in post-processing. And the concept is pretty much the same. You train a picture. You train the computer vision to look at a picture. You tell it what it's looking at, and then you can start to use those frames to then do something post-processing. Talk to the PLC. You could ultimately, communicate to some OPC UA system, some machine itself. Maybe run a different program on the CNC machine. There's a lot of possibilities. So again, as the items come over the belt line, these little squares are what the computer vision's calling out. And you'll note up to the top left, the total keeps going up. And it's getting a lot of images over a short amount of time. So we've trained this model to say, this is a Twix bar, this is a Snickers bar. This is Sandora, right? And that has a specific cost to it. You'll note that each of these also have a percentage afterward, and that's the confidence level of the AI. It's saying I'm 99% confident that this is correct. So you can start to do manage by exception items. Again, I'm showing you this in hopes of showing that the marketplace is not just a place to get your standard applications. The future of it is to try to embed these type of technologies and teach customers how to use them.